Hello, and welcome to the Art of Living Well podcast. I'm Stephanie Mae Potter, and I'm here with my co-host, Marnie Dotches-Marmette.
We created the Art of Living Well podcast to empower you to live your happiest, healthiest, and most authentic life. Each week, we will bring you inspiring and motivating conversations covering health and wellness topics, including fitness, mindset, food, travel, product reviews, and strategies from a variety of experts, including our own bank of knowledge.
We are excited to educate, motivate, and inspire you to change the way you perceive health and discover your art of living well. Get ready to feel inspired.
Stephanie and I had such an amazing experience last week. We went to Healing Elements Yoga and Massage Studio in St. Anthony Park, which is really on the cusp of St. Paul and Minneapolis. And we went there and we took just a wonderful yoga class. We each had our, own massages. I had like an integrated massage, which I've never had before. And the therapist was so wonderful. What did you have?
I had a deep tissue and I had so much inflammation going on in my body. It was wonderful, wonderful. Probably one of the best massages I've had. It's such a welcoming community too, Marnie. Like we sat before our massage and yoga class and we had tea. They have like a little, tea coffee shop area and retail space.
Which had the cutest little things. Like I could just spend time kind of browsing around in there.
Yes.
And it's such an authentic place. Like you really could feel that welcoming community and
just inclusiveness and connectedness, really.
And they have so many different services they offer. They have all different kinds of yoga classes, meditation classes, massage therapy. They're doing workshops and special events.
And you can actually sign up to have like a massage membership. So if you are someone that...
Which is so cool.
Yes. So Healing Elements has an amazing offer for all of our listeners. First-time customers can receive a 1 week of unlimited yoga classes for free and $15 off a massage treatment. Head on over to our show notes and you'll get the promo code. You can either book online or you can call the studio.
I cannot wait to go back.
Either can I. Hello, and welcome to episode number 18 of the Art of Living Well podcast. You are going to love today's conversation with Ben Leber. Ben's a retired 10-year NFL linebacker who played for San Diego, Minnesota, and St. Louis. I met Ben and his family several years ago in our local community and have really gotten to know him and his family over the years. I learned so much from our conversation, though, with Ben that I did not know, and just super excited to share the inspiration and motivation that he brought to our conversation with all of you today. Our conversation with Ben goes deep into the many lessons that he learned while playing college football at Kansas State University and then in his professional career. He dives into how he learned to take feedback to improve his game, which is a life lesson I think all of us can benefit from. Ben opens up about a period early in his career while he was in college where he experienced significant self-doubt about his ability to play football at that level. And he shares the tools that he learned, which helped him to overcome those limiting beliefs. Ben shares his win from within approach to success and how this mindset shift has helped him during his football career, as well as his transition to his current career as a broadcaster. So for a little bit of background, Ben went to Kansas State University and earned all kinds of accolades. He was twice named to the Big 12 All-Conference teams. He was the third team All-American and ended up fifth in tackles for school history, all while earning himself a business degree. And then after his tenure in the NFL, he decided that he wanted to stay close to the game and started working for Fox Sports as a college football color commentator, and has since worked his way up the ladder and is now a full-time analyst working nationally televised games for the Big 10, the Big 12, and the Pac-12 conferences. He maintains his life in Minneapolis and has a great balance, which he talks about, between his works and travel schedule and his home life, as family is really important to Ben. He also appears on numerous radio shows throughout the week, mostly as a Minnesota Vikings NFL insider. The tips and strategies that Ben shares in our conversations are applicable to everyone, from athletes of all ages to parents, adults, and everyone in between. Marty and I had so much fun getting to know Ben better during our conversation, and we cannot wait to share that with you today. Ben, we are so excited that you're with us today on the podcast. Thanks for coming over.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes. So you're from a small town in South Dakota. You played in the NFL for 10 years, and you're currently a college football broadcaster and sideline analyst for the Vikings. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and your journey?
Yeah, sure. My story, I think, is not a straight linear line like a lot of people. So I grew up in southern Iowa, small old coal mining town called Albia. It's like 30 miles west of Ottumwa, Iowa, which is famous for the crackhead Tom Arnold. So they have that. They have that claim to fame that, hey,
really?
Yeah. That's.
Oh my gosh!
I don't know if there's anybody else.
The actor.
The actor.
Oh yeah,
So,
he was a client of mine a long time ago for something that's just
Really?
so funny. That's a whole other story. But
It's so funny because when he
Oh my
was
gosh,
getting like to be big time, I think we still lived there because I believe Roseanne, all that stuff was going on, and we still lived there. And it's like, hey, we're the hometown of Tom Arnold, right?
Oh my gosh!
And then flash to like 10 years down the road, and he's just like a hot mess. And it's like,
right.
I don't know if you guys still claim him or not, or what's
May
going.
want to rethink that.
Yeah, I may want to rethink that. Maybe there's something else more famous that came from Ottumwa. But that's sort of the area that I grew up in, basically from age 2 to end of 5th grade. My dad was my high school principal, so he took a principal job in Vermillion, South Dakota, and then I lived there from 6th grade all the way through high school. Played all 4 sports, doing what most small town kids do. It was about 115, 120 my graduating class, so it's pretty small. And then played football at Kansas State for 5 years. Was drafted by the San Diego Chargers, at the time San Diego, it's hard to even say LA Chargers now, back in 2002. Played there for 4 years, played in Minnesota for 5 years, and then played 1 year in St. Louis to finish out my NFL career. And then from there, just tried to figure out life after that. And I thought broadcasting would be a fun avenue. And lo and behold, the more people you talk to and the more connections you make. And there's a guy from Fox Sports that was from Minneapolis, and I had a great sit-down sort of interview with him for 2 hours in Los Angeles one day, and he's like, hey, I got some stuff I can have you do. And it started off in high school football and kind of worked my way up doing college football, and then all at the same time doing things with the Vikings here in town. And so I just kind of morphed into this media world where I didn't know for sure if that's what I wanted to do, but that's what I'm doing.
And do you love it?
I do love it. Yeah, it is fun because I know myself enough that I want to be close to football, because I enjoy the sport. I think I just love how everything gets pieced together week after week after week. And there's an intensity to it. I think from the preparation, from all the things that happen behind the scenes that really intrigue me, outside of just what Sundays are. I think there's so much more that happens in the game during the course of the week that I still geek out about and I love. So I wanted to be close to the sport, but I didn't want to put in the hours of a coach or an administrator, because those guys just, they have a really hard work-life balance. So I wanted to stay in it, and broadcasting was an avenue that, like, well, I can stay in it. I don't have to put in, 90 hours a week, and I can still be around my family, and I can still travel with the team and be close with them. So it was perfect. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you had mentioned to us before we started the interview about how in your college days you had some moments of self-doubt, and what tools did you use to overcome that, and how can you tell us more about it?
So my freshman year at K-State, we were getting ready to do our first padded practice. We had gone through a couple of practices where you're just like in helmets and there's no real contact, and we were getting ready for our first padded practice. And I'd been practicing. I graduated high school, and then like 2 weeks later I was down there. Like, I wanted to be a part of the team, and I was doing all the summer workouts, and I was doing all that stuff. But then all of a sudden there was this pinnacle point where we had this padded practice, and this was like the real first start of training camp. And so this was my first training camp at a Division I school, and I was in my dorm room, and I had my roommate there, and he was taking a nap, and I was trying to nap, but all these thoughts came into my head about just my journey and just what I was getting ready to do, and just I think I was really overwhelmed by what was about to happen, and I started to really doubt myself, and so much so where I, kind of pulled the covers over my head like I was scared of the boogie monster, and I thought about quitting football because the thought of putting myself out there and being like that vulnerable and like failing, and I'm like, well, maybe I should just go back, and maybe the doubters are right. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe, I'm just a small town kid that can't do this, and this is too big for me, and whatever. And so I really fought off for probably, 30 to 45 minutes of just like kind of panic and terror about what was about to happen and who I was and what I wanted to do. And thankfully, because we were roommates and there was somebody there, he gets up and goes to practice, and I'm like, well, I guess I just gotta kind of follow through with that. And so I just sort of just went through the motions, I think, my whole first year about what, do I really belong here? And then I had some critical moments that kind of proved myself, I think, physically and mentally that I could do it. And then from there, it was this like little win after little win on a daily basis of like, okay, I can improve this, and I can do this, and I can belong, and I do belong, and hey, they're not as big and fast as strong as I thought they were, and I'm just as. So it was a lot of that daily like assessment of like figuring out who I was kind of helped me through it. And now I don't shy away from the self-doubt. I know that's just kind of a part of my psychology, that I may see something, I'm like, I don't think I can do that. But then the other part of my brain, I've kind of conditioned myself, is like, I kind of dare myself, like, I bet you can do that. Or maybe you can't do that. And I try to like prove myself wrong inside my own head.
That's such a great strategy, though. I mean, almost is it your competitiveness?
Yeah.
Internally.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, and the funny thing is, when I talk about this openly, I never knew, and I think we all see it with our own kids, right? They will talk about things, and you're like, hey, we all think that, and you feel so alone in your thoughts, and then when you actually verbalize them, you're like, oh my gosh, well, there's a lot of other guys that kind of have the same self-doubt or went through the same similar story. And so then that reinforces it even more. So it's like, the more I talk about it, the more I feel better about it, and the more I find out that like, hey, other athletes, go through the same thing, and I'm not alone. All of it has sort of just, I think, helped me in my mental strategies to kind of overcome some of that anxiety and self-doubt. And now I kind of use it as fuel.
Yeah, I love that.
And really, you can apply that. I mean, I think a lot of people feel that fear. You can call it fear, right? That holds them back in any career or pretty much anything.
Yeah.
It's not just athletes, I would say. Business people, entrepreneurs, like a lot of people have that fear that's holding them back. And then I like how you said, you just like got up and went through the motions. Like maybe you weren't ready mentally, but you still did it.
Yeah.
And every day that you did it, you felt a little better about it and stronger. And, those little wins kind of.
Yeah. There was definitely a lack of confidence about what I was and who I was and stuff like that. And I would never, the weird thing is I would never say to anybody, hey, just go ahead and go through the motions. But I think that there is some value to dipping your toe in the water and just saying like, okay, let me check the temperature here and let me just see if this is what I want to do. And then, I think we've all met people that they'll just jump right in, and good for them. That's great for them. I've got friends that just like, I don't think that self-doubt and that lack of confidence was ever an issue. They just like, this is what I'm doing and I'm doing it.
Right.
But for me, it was, all right, let me just test this out and see if this is what I want to do and how I'm going to do it. And then from there, it was like, okay, now that I've gotten that out of the way, now I can kind of really commit myself to doing everything that I can to be better.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned, like, I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, though, but people maybe said something to you, like, oh, you're from a small town, or you can't get to the, play big football or the NFL. And so was there something like going back to when you were younger?
I think I'm glad you brought that up because, I think that there is this, I don't want to like totally crap on all small towns, but I do feel like there is this mentality in small towns, because I grew up in two of them, and I did hear that in the back of my head. When I was, as a child, just kind of being observant and just hearing, you just hear things, right? And I think the one thing that always kind of came to the top was small town people aren't meant to succeed. Small town people don't want somebody from the herd to be different. They want everybody to be the same for whatever reason. I don't know why, but that's the feeling I got. And then there was a time when I was in Vermilion where I was getting attention because of playing football and being active in sports and being better than some of the kids. I had one of my own teammates, excuse my French here, he goes, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" Mm-hmm. Wow. And I'm like, well, and I never really thought about it at that point, but when it was so frontal, it's like, well, I'm not trying to act like I'm better than you guys. Like I'm trying to handle this with humility and just like continue to work hard and just keep my head down. But there was this like idea that they felt somebody was breaking off from the group, and either it made them look bad or they didn't like the way I was handling it, and I didn't think I was handling it in a bad way. But so when I was in my dorm room, like all those thoughts were going into my head of like, yeah, who do I think? Like, do I really deserve this? Is it really okay for me to be going to do this and being successful? And like to a point where like, why do I feel ashamed about finding success? But I think that there was something subconsciously where I heard this through my life that I wasn't supposed to be there, and they were just kind of waiting for me to fall back down and go join them back at the local bar and talk about our high school days.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can relate.
Yeah.
What about your parents? Did they support you along the way?
100%. I mean, I think that's in the end kind of what got me through. I have two older brothers, and both of them were athletically talented in their own right. And so I could lean on them with phone calls and just, I don't think because we're guys and we didn't talk about it as much, but I didn't really ask them pointedly like, hey, I'm kind of feeling like this, and did you ever feel like this? And like, I think it was more just like talking to them. Like I would just bitch to them like, oh, practice was so hard today or whatever, and they're just like, oh yeah, I remember those type of practices or whatever. So it was kind of sharing those bonding moments of like they've been through hard practices before, and just kind of like learning to push through. And my parents, I mean, my mom, and I think that we all do this with our own parents, but my mom was like almost, I don't want to say too supportive, because it's not a negative thing, but my mom thinks that we can do everything. Yeah.
But you can.
And that's the same thing I tell my kids.
Right? Yeah. And that's the mindset you want.
And that's the mindset you want. But it's just so funny because, my mom's just always just like, so who's going to be the doctor? Who's going to be the lawyer? Who's going to be this? And it's like, and so. I love that. Yeah. And it's great. And so thankfully I had a support system and like that to kind of get me through it. But I don't know. You never. I never looked at my parents as somebody I can emotionally sit down with and say the same thing I was talking about with my brothers. Like, hey, I'm kind of having these thoughts. Like, how do I navigate this? Right. Yeah. I always just knew that they're going to be there for a hug and like, for them to tell me that they love me, and that's about it. So I really just kind of had to figure it out on my own.
Well, and clearly you did.
Yeah, I guess thankfully. I mean, but I guess I was always one of those kids, and this is a testament to my parents, that I always wanted just to get out. Get
out of the small town.
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to go to college someplace else. Yeah. Like I always knew that I wanted to go do something else, and I was always like trying to be as independent as possible. Like I knew how to do laundry when I was in college, and not a lot of kids know how to do that. Like I'm okay doing that. I'm okay fending for myself and being alone and going to dinner by myself. Like I'm fine doing that. So I think I was ready. Mentally, I think I was ready to get out of the house, but I don't think I was emotionally ready as much as I thought. And then, because of their support system and knowing that they always had my back, I was able to sort of get through the rough times and figure it out. Yeah. I mean, I think that's how it is. It's trial and error. And, one day I'd go to practice and try something or try a different mental approach. And like, well, that didn't work. Maybe you should try something else. That sucked. Let me try something else. But
yeah. No, that's great. It's a great story. I think everyone has to kind of go through those moments to really, succeed in whatever it is you want to
Yeah.
do in life.
Yeah.
And I think, so I have a freshman in college right now, boy, and I think that those are normal feelings for all first year college students leaving home.
Yeah.
I mean, you have another layer being a college athlete and having, expectations on this D1 football team, obviously. But I think that most college freshmen experience those feelings.
Yeah. And now that I kind of went through that, I try to open myself up to my kids. My kids are much younger now, but, I want them to know that when it comes to emotional advice that we should be there, because maybe it was just an era thing,
I think it was, because we didn't talk about
thing.
that.
Yeah.
And I'm very different in how I communicate with my kids now.
Yeah.
And I think sharing what you've gone through as a parent with your kids just kind of level sets the playing field, right?
Yeah.
And you're on the same level, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that can help them.
Yeah.
So I think you have a great story to tell, whenever you want to share that, or if you already have with your kids. So
yeah, we try. Which you never know if they care.
No, right? Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, I can just shut up, Dad, and make some popcorn, okay?
Yeah.
But at some point they will.
They will.
You would think so. You'd hope so. Yeah. At least I'm trying.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all we can do, right?
Yes, exactly. So switching gears a little bit, you have kind of an interesting story about how you determined you had a gluten sensitivity.
Yeah.
Can you share this with the audience?
Yeah. I think it goes really all the way back to when I was a kid. My mom would have bouts of something where her lips would swell up, or she'd get a migraine, and we just chalked it up like, maybe it's something you ate or stress or something, right? And then I remember being young, and I was getting like hives, and my lips would swell up too. So some of the same similar symptoms as my mom. And then we always just chalked up like, well, it's a genetic thing, and that's how you pass off, right? You're like, we'll just manage it. And
Hives
just kind of,
and swollen lips.
Exactly. Totally normal.
Runs in the family.
Yeah, it runs in the exactly like, your mom gets the same thing. We'll just kind of treat it, and this is what she does, and so that's kind of how I did it, and I thought that was just the norm, and so I just kind of dealt with that all the way through high school, and there was a period of time, I think, through college and the early parts of my playing career in San Diego, where I didn't have much of it, and I don't know why. I didn't have to do it. I would get maybe 2 migraines a whole year, and I always chalked it because it was like more like fall and spring, and I'm like, well, maybe it's the temperature or whatever. People would say like it's the pressure or whatever. Then in 2006, when I signed my contract in Minnesota, that whole year, that whole first fall, I was. I'll take a step back. That whole spring when we moved up here, I had hives a lot, and I was breaking out what they medically called giant hives. They weren't like the small prickly hives. They were like big welts, and they would like happen all over my body. And then my lips would swell and stuff. And I remember my wife and I were driving from San Diego. We were actually making the move to Minnesota, and where there's one night in some crappy motel that we were staying at, and I took my shirt off, and my whole body was just full of these like big giant hives.
Oh,
and she's like, "What is happening?" I'm like, "I don't know, man." And so I went through that season just kind of navigating that, and like they'd come and go, and I'd take an Allegra or something, some sort of antihistamine, and they go away. But there was one time at the end of the season where I'm in meetings, and I woke up that morning with like kind of a swollen lip, and I can feel it starting to tingle and stuff. And then it moved down to like my jawline, and I'm sitting in meetings, and it was like going down to like my neck area. And so I go to the trainer, I'm like, "Dude, I woke up with this. What's going on?" He's like, "That's really close to your throat. Like, let's EpiPen you now and get this calmed down." So they EpiPen me. I chill out for 15 minutes while the adrenaline kicks in, and then I go to practice. I do the regular day. And that was the point where like, I have to figure this out. Like, I can't live life like this anymore. So I went to a whole bunch of doctors. Like, they got me down to the Mayo Clinic. They did all these things for me, and nobody could answer any questions. They would say, well,
2006 was pretty
early
on.
Yeah. And so they did the standard like skin test, and they're like, well, it could be this. We can't really pinpoint it. And the Mayo Clinic basically just, they flat out told me, keep taking your Allegra, and that's all we can do for you. And you'll probably grow out of it. Yeah. And I kind of gave him double middle fingers as I left Rochester. And I'm like, screw you guys.
Yes.
Like, you guys are supposed to be the best in the country, and you can't tell me what's going on. cut to a couple months later, a friend of ours is sharing a story about their own daughter and a dairy sensitivity and whatever. And so they suggested this functional medicine doctor in town. And so I go to him. He's like, let's get you a food screen. What do you know about leaky gut and all this other stuff? Because he went through my whole medical history. And he's like, and at this time, I knew nothing about this world. I didn't know anything about like functional medicine or whatever. And he kind of tells me, 70% of your immune system's in your gut, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, so as a player, we're taking anti-inflammatories on a daily basis, we either through injection or through prescription. And so I was basically, as he goes through it, he's like, you've been on a prescription anti-inflammatory for the last 5 years of your life. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. I'm like, that's kind of what it takes, right? Like, and he goes, he's like, I'm going to guess without even doing any more diagnosis, like your gut is destroyed. Like, so let's do these tests or whatever. Come to find out that I was allergic to wheat. And he's like, do the 2-week deal, stay off of wheat, go gluten-free, and then test it some morning and just have like 2 pieces of wheat bread for breakfast. And sure enough, hives came back. I got a swollen lip that day. And he goes, that's it. Stay. He's like, I go, so how long is this going to last? He's like, I don't know. Let's just do it for as long. And that was the start of me going on my own self journey of like, so the things I put in my body can really affect me as a person, my mental state, my physical state, like my body's clearly reacting. So I've been gluten-free since 2006, basically. And, I haven't really missed it.
Isn't that funny how you stop missing it though? I'm sure you can find other foods, and right now there are so many.
Well, now there's so many things. There's so many ways.
Options.
Yeah.
Back then it was probably a little harder when you started in 2006.
Well, and I think that when you see immediate results, I think that's the biggest thing, and that for me, for anybody that's ever gone through anything like that or similar, like the fear of the unknown is so much on your mind. Like every day at practice, I'm wondering like, am I going to get a swollen lip, or am I going to get hives today? Or, can I go to this event?
Right.
And if I feel my lips start to tingle, does that mean I'm going to get a swollen lip? And like, you're kind of like thinking of an exit plan or like whatever.
Right.
And so just having that peace of mind of like, I just avoid this and I won't have to deal with the consequences anymore. I'm like, so that made it so much easier to be like, no, that yummy looking steamy sourdough bread that's on the table at the steakhouse, I really want it. I really want it with the salty butter, and I just like, I really, really want it. But like,
the results.
I know the results, and so and it was really immediate, and so that's been pretty easy to be like, all right, I know that my body maybe it's just more sensitive than other people, but I got to treat it differently.
Exactly.
So I have 2 questions about that.
Yep.
What about your mom? Did she also cut out gluten?
We talked about it, and no, she didn't. I've offered like my whole family. I'm like, I will buy you guys this blood test. Like I believe in it so much, and I think it's more than anything else. It's peace of mind of knowing that okay, I'm in control. I think so much of the way we live our lives is we just kind of like, without even thinking, like this is just the way things are, and this is just the food we eat, and we're just conditioned to do this. I'm like, well, but if whatever you're dealing with is like food related or in your control, why wouldn't you want to take control? And so, like our middle brother he gets migraines and stuff too, and I keep telling him like, I swear it's stuff that you eat. And my mom, same thing, but
they're not ready.
They're not ready for it.
And family can be tough. I mean, just speaking.
I was just curious if your mom still got, had the hives.
I think she still does. Yeah, but
she
she really is. I think as most older people do, she just doesn't eat as much, and so I think that her whatever inflammation was going on in her gut probably is better now because she's just not feeding it all the time.
Right.
And then my second question for you is, did you do anything else to heal your gut, or did you only cut out gluten?
No, he gave me this whole protocol of like supplements and things, and just put me on, I think it was like a 3-month deal to just, give it obviously the healthy things and the healthy bacteria and build all those things back up and seal up my leaky gut and all this other stuff. And which is, excuse me, another weird topic to talk about, because it's got such a terrible name.
So we both help people with that. So that's why I was curious if he not only diagnosed your
it was
gluten sensitivity, but also that helped you heal your gut.
No, I think my wife Abby got kind of annoyed with it after a while because I was like, no, I gotta. It's like I got this concoction of like different powders and whatever, and she's like, you really think that's working? I'm like, I do. Like I think it's working.
Right, and it's all about you. Your quality of life improved after. So,
and you said
you still eat popcorn.
I do still eat popcorn. Popcorn is like my thing.
Yeah,
that's like
I
my
love
jam.
popcorn also.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
Popcorn's yummy.
Yeah.
Popcorn with coconut
Thankfully,
oils.
there's no gluten.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But I've even had to tell myself, like, okay, I'm eating way too much corn lately. I just got to stop.
Yeah.
So I've even like, I need to cut back on that.
Yeah, I know. That doesn't bode
Corn
well with
is
me
not
either.
with most people, actually.
I know.
Corn is
I know.
a good thing
for
most people.
So pick when you're going to indulge.
So what about your workouts? How do you work out? Like, how do you stay fit?
I don't work out nearly as much as I'd hope. Excuse me. I box. I have an at-home gym that I do most of my weights on. We have a Peloton. You know,
I have a Peloton. We just got it. I love it.
It's so great.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm obsessed with it.
Well, the funny thing is, my wife had been wanting it for like a year, and I wasn't paying attention like what it really was. I go, it's an exercise bike. Like I got her spin bike like 10 years ago. I'm like, we have a spin bike downstairs you never use. I'm like, what is the difference? And she's like, it's different. And she'd like try to explain. I'm like, all right. So Valentine's Day, I finally got one. I ride that damn thing more than she does.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite instructor?
Leanne Hainsby.
Oh, I haven't tried her.
Leanne Hainsby she's from the UK.
Okay.
Well, I would love that accent.
I'm going to look her up.
Yeah, she's great.
Have you tried Robin? I don't know how to say it.
Arzone?
Yeah, she's my favorite so far.
She was my jam for, I would say, the early parts of it, and then I've switched up with Leanne lately. But I'll go back to Robin's. I think Robin's workouts are harder than Leanne's.
She's hard. That's why I like it.
She's a butt kicker, man.
Yeah.
I'll get done with, they ask you the metrics at the end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was a 10.
Yeah.
Like, how hard was that? I'm like, that one was a 10. That was a 10. Okay, yep. I need to lay down for a second.
Yeah. But I don't push myself that hard, so I like having somebody
Well, how long do you ride? Like, what's your average?
So I've been doing like 45-minute rides.
See, if I'm a 20 to 30 minute. That's all I can do.
Okay.
I think because of football conditioning, I'm mentally conditioned to like do things fast, anaerobically, and be done. Yeah. So if I'm going
it's probably more efficient.
I like that.
Me too.
Yeah.
I just
like this whole idea. I think it's great that people go out and go for runs.
Run marathons, but
I'm like, but you're running for hours.
I know.
Is that fun? I'm like, oh yeah, it's great. You get this runner's high and you just listen to music or you listen to a podcast. I'm like, yeah, but I could get a workout done in 45 minutes total. Right. And like have the rest of my day to do whatever I want and feel just as good. But hey, man, to each his own.
Exactly.
It depends what you enjoy. Right?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to run, I'm going to run stairs or I'm going to run intervals and I'm in and out.
And you're going to be done.
And I'm going to be done.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think I have ADD when it comes to workouts.
Yeah,
I can't do anything for that long either. Like my mind.
Yeah. And that's, so to kind of finish up that thought. So I took up boxing years ago, probably 6-7 years ago, because I got a bad knee and I just didn't want to do stuff that's pounding. Like I tried a whole bunch of different exercises. Like I tried going to the basketball league with the guys and playing basketball and do that thing, but my knee just couldn't handle it. And I would just lay awake at night and with my knee throbbing. So then I found boxing and it was like, wow, it's really virtually no impact on your lower body. And you look at any boxer on TV and you're like, well, those guys are like ripped, like they have like no body fat. I'm like, well, there's something to that cardio workout. So I tried it and I love it. It's like learning a new skill. Mm-hmm. So I think it challenges my brain when I work out. And, again, I'm done in an hour and I get like this awesome workout where I'm just sweating my face off. So yeah, that's all I do.
That sounds great. And then you got to run around with your kids. So
there
you go.
Yes, exactly.
So earlier before we started this, we were talking about kind of this win from within approach to success that you have. And I know it's a concept you talk to a lot of groups about. Can you explain a little bit of that to the audience?
Yeah, it's, I think the one thing that all of us athletes get a lot of times, and other people that kind of make it to that level is just like, what's the key to success? And it's like this big question. You're like, I don't really know. Like, I just like, I don't know. It's like, because it's your daily life. It's like what you do on a daily basis. So like, there's not one thing that I think that you can say like, well, it's just hard work, or it's just sacrifice, or it's just this. And, I found out for me, a lot of it, I think the success is psychological, and then talked earlier just about my own self-doubt and analyzing kind of critically on a daily basis, kind of like who you are and where you want to go. And it sounds tedious, but I found it for me, that's the best approach of getting better. And I think success is it comes down to one thing. It's improvement. Like how can you improve every day? And in a football world, I think it surprises a lot of people how much feedback that we get as football players, and how much work we put in on that level. We get our practices filmed every day, and our daily routine is at about 4:00. We break down that practice film in a group setting. So you're in with your coaches and your peers, and keep in mind, again, I try to like compare it and put it in other people's wheelhouse. That imagine your sales floor or your group of peers and you're at work all to get together at 4:00 in the afternoon, and it's your friends, but it's also people that are competing with you, and they all get in a room and they watch your day's work, and that's what happens to us as football players. Is we're going to watch practice. And we are analyzed critically, all the goods and bads that happen, and it's verbalized to us sometimes in a not so nice way, in a very blunt and honest way. Sometimes there's yelling, and sometimes there's 4-letter words, and it's like very frontal. So it can be really, really hard. But being conditioned to do that, I've found that that's the only way I think that you can ask for personal growth and improvement is, I know what I did wrong today, so I know how to improve tomorrow. And I just think that a lot of it really comes down to your psychological approach. Can you handle the feedback? Can you not take it in a personal fashion? Can you really take those nuggets and bits and pieces and try to apply it to the next day? And there's a level of mental courage that has to come with that. It's understanding where you are today, and then, okay, well, I have to be humble enough to realize that like I'm not perfect. I have to move forward. I have to do this, and then you kind of get a game plan for the next day. So it's like this really slow, meticulous process of just kind of tearing yourself down on the day, building yourself back up, tearing it down, building it back up, tearing it down, building it back up, and then eventually. And hopefully if you're doing things the right way, and especially in the football world, if you're healthy and you're not injured, you end up getting better. And so there's not a magic formula other than just really analyzing on a day-to-day basis. And almost in a weird way, you have to do some self-reflection at the end of each day. And I know that sounds so, I guess, different in this day and age, but I ask people, when I do these talks, of sit down at the end of the night for 5 minutes and go through your head and do what we would do as football players at 4:00 every day and break your day down. How did you do today? What were your wins and what were your losses? And then how are you going to change those losses into wins tomorrow? And it doesn't have to be about your work. It's like, well, I was a jerk to my kids tonight at bedtime.
Right.
Which happens a lot, right? And you're like, okay, well, that's probably a loss on the day. Like, how can I make that better? And then break it down even further. Everybody says like, well, we'll answer the why. Well, the why can be found 10 steps down the road, but working backwards. And so, well, why did I yell at my kids? Well, it could have been because they weren't doing this. Well, why weren't they doing that? Well, it's because earlier I told them to do this and they weren't doing that. Well, why did you snap at them earlier? Well, it's because I had a bad day at work. Well, why'd you have a bad day at work? Well, it's because this happened. And the next thing you know, it's like you could find the core root of the whole reason. It could have been back at 10 o'clock in the morning, that carried through your day. So, I just, it really helped me to do that as a player from a football standpoint of why did I mess that play up? Whose fault was it? Was it my fault? Did I have control over that outcome or that consequence? How was my weight workout today? How was my diet today? How was my mental approach that day? So I would just every day just sort of break that down. And then every morning I would actually have a game plan to how to attack that day. And so it was just like this nice little way to find that sort of motivation on a daily basis of like, okay, today I'm in the weight room, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And I know I need to work on this. And on the practice field, I know I need to work on my hand work or my foot work or my whatever. So it was just a great tool that I've kind of developed and I try to implement, even today.
I think that is such great advice for everyone. And it just sounds like you're being really intentional with your day.
Really intentional. And I think being really honest with your day.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard.
Yeah.
And again, because of the football training where nothing is sugar coated. Like you mess up a play, you messed up the play, and there's no hiding from it. So I've gotten better about not hiding from the truth.
You develop thicker skin, I'm sure.
You develop thicker skin. And I think part of that is like realizing that, hey, everybody screws up. Like,
Right.
who cares? Like,
move on.
Move
right?
on.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to compare yourself to somebody else every day, you're going to be miserable. So
Exactly.
do what you can do, and be okay with that. And I think being honest with yourself, we, even as players, because I went through it, I would go through it a lot where like, well, it's not my fault, or maybe I'd find ways to sort of lighten the blow. And at the end of the day, it's like, I'm fooling myself. Like, I'm just kind of being fraudulent to myself. Like I messed up. I screwed up. I got to get better. And how am I going to get better? And so even as I do the broadcasting work or whatever, I just try to be really, I try to be hard on myself. And I think that can be good.
Depends on the person, actually.
I think. I think that's individual to be hard on yourself every day. But I do think as a lot of players, a lot of the great players I've been around, they are hard on themselves. They are their own worst critic. And I think there's some value to that.
But it doesn't sound like you're only critiquing yourself. It sounds like when you're evaluating your day, you're looking at the good and the bad.
You have to. Yeah. I mean, I think that, I think you have to do that with everything. Like if you're a coach, if you're always telling your kids what they did wrong or your players what they did wrong, whether they're going to have a negative outlook on themselves. And the great coaches, and that's the other thing, I just have tried to pick up little bits and pieces of what I like that my coaches, and I've been around a bunch of different styles of coaches, and I think the best ones are the ones that are brutally honest, but are also the ones that they can be as passionate in a negative way, but as passionate in a positive way. They will put their arm around you, and they will have honest conversations with you, and they will say like, man, that's a hell of a play. Like, that's a great, like, those little wins like that can supersede, 10 negatives and make you feel really good about yourself. So that's the other thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Like, it's not always about what you did wrong and how you can fix it, but hey, what did you do right today?
Yeah.
And when you analyze those things, like, okay, why did I do that right today? Like, what put me in a good mindset to do that right today? How can I do that tomorrow? Like, how can I repeat that good feeling and so, yeah, you gotta cherish your wins and accept your losses.
Such great advice.
And where can people find you during season and off season?
Usually at my house. I'm kidding. I think outwardly on Twitter, I'm at Nacho Leber. Nacho. So Nacho is a nickname.
Yeah, it's like, where did that come from?
So Nacho is a nickname that a teammate of mine, Jared Allen, gave me because of the movie Nacho Libre, which I've only seen the movie once. So it's not like I'm a huge fan, but I think it just sounded good. So he'd always call me Nacho, and then it kind of caught on, and everybody around the Vikings facility would just call me Nacho. I mean, that was just like my nickname.
So you're known as Nacho.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if someone yells down the hallway, "Hey, Nacho," they're talking to
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the side, I do love nachos. Like, I mean,
The gluten-free nachos.
yeah, the gluten-free nachos.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. So it all kind of works out. And then on Instagram and Facebook, I'm just at Ben Leber Official, which sounds really pretentious, but somebody took my other one. Somebody just took Ben Leber.
Okay.
I mean, not that I'm not the only Ben Leber. So when I jumped on Instagram the first time, there was some like kid with the same name.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn you, kid. Like,
Can I buy this from you?
yeah. I don't even know where he's from. And I'm like, oh. So I did the official thing, and it's kind of what stuck.
It works.
Okay. Nice.
Oh, and benleber.com,
Yes.
the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll link all that up and put it in the show notes too for
Yeah,
everyone.
sure.
So our last question that we like to ask all of our guests on the podcast is, what does the art of living well mean to you?
The art of living well for me is, I think for me, it's having fun discovering and rediscovering yourself. And a lot of, I've always sort of, from a health standpoint, I've always sort of been involved, like interested in that. Health class is one of my favorite classes in high school. And then because of my gluten issues, it just sort of made me even more interested in how our bodies work and in conjunction with the world around us. So I think that the art of living well is having fun with curiosity. I've always been curious about that stuff. And so I listen to health podcasts, I read health books. And it's one of the nerdy things that I like to do.
I don't think it's nerdy.
No, I know, but
Some people do.
yeah, some people do. And again, like I've always loved astronomy. One of my favorite things to do when I was a kid was my dad had a telescope, and we'd go out on starry nights and just look at the moon and stuff. So I watch science channels and things. I just think that the art of living well is just be happy, being curious, and scratching the itch of whatever it is. Whatever it might be nerdy and it might be weird, but if you find joy in it and it interests you, then do it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think having fun is so important.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For good health for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
for
you're welcome.
being with us today.
Yeah, we
and
love
sharing
having
all
you on
of
the show.
this.
Thanks, guys.
Excited for our listeners to hear more about your journey.
So Stephanie, people keep asking me, and I think you get the same question, like, what's a great protein powder to use? And there's so many protein powders on the market, and they're overwhelming, right? Trying to figure out what's good, what's not good. We both love the DNS powder, which is a daily nutritional support.
From Equilibrium Nutrition. And Marnie, you're the one that turned me on to it probably a year ago now. I've been converted from a lot of the other protein powders that I was using that you would pick up at the store. Nothing against any of those other products, but what we love about this is it's a complete multivitamin. So you can't even really say it's a protein powder, but there is a clean plant-based source of protein that's all non-GMO, third-party verified for heavy metals.
And for those of you that don't know what third-party verified means, that means a third party is coming in, looking at the ingredients that are listed and actually verifying that what's in this container is really in the container.
Right.
And that's super important because a lot of protein powders on the market are not verified, and they're putting in fillers and all kinds of stuff.
Exactly. So I love this because you don't need a multivitamin. And honestly, in addition to having an excess of probably your daily recommended allowance for the vitamins and minerals, there's ingredients in here that help just support gut health, right?
And it's 15 grams of a vegan protein. It's pretty low sugar, and it tastes really good.
Tastes really good.
Comes in chocolate and vanilla.
And kids can use it too. You would just reduce their dosage.
Yep, my 2 daughters have a scoop every day in their smoothie.
Right.
It's nut-free, dairy-free, soy-free, gluten-free,
non-GMO. It's the cleanest and most complete nutritional support and protein powder that Marnie and I have found. And we've both done a lot of research on our own and have gone through many different protein powders that we've used over the years.
So if you're interested in purchasing the protein powder, you can head over to our website, theartoflivingwell.us/products, and check it out.
Yep, and message us if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for listening to the Art of Living Well podcast. We are so grateful that you joined us today.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or anyone else you think may benefit from this information. We'd love for you to subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, and tag the Art of Living Well podcast on social media.
If you want more inspiration in between episodes, you can find us on social media at theartofliving_well on Instagram and Facebook, where we will share snippets from our daily lives and our journey to living well.